The CEO laughed at the single dad's idea. Until it became the only thing that saved the company. The laughter came first, sharp, careless, echoing across the glass-walled boardroom like something breaking. It wasn't cruel in intention, but it landed that way, cutting deeper than any direct insult ever could. In that moment, as sunlight reflected off polished tables and million-dollar screens, a single father stood frozen with a presentation remote in his shaking hand, realizing that his idea, his hope, and maybe his last chance had just been dismissed as a joke. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Ethan Cole never imagined himself standing in that room. 3 years earlier, his life had been reduced to survival mode after his wife passed away suddenly, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old daughter and a grief that never truly slept. His mornings began before sunrise, packing lunches with hands that still felt heavy with loss, tying shoelaces while listening to questions he didn't always know how to answer. His nights ended with unpaid bills spread across the kitchen table, his laptop glowing as he worked freelance contracts after his daughter fell asleep holding his old t-shirt. Life had become a quiet, relentless balancing act between being enough as a father and being useful enough to stay employed. The company, a fast-growing tech firm once hailed as the future of consumer innovation, had hired him during better times. Back then, creativity was rewarded, and fresh perspectives were celebrated. But success had hardened the place. When profits dipped and competitors surged ahead, innovation became fear-driven, leadership grew defensive, and only ideas backed by numbers and prestige were welcomed. Ethan, a mid-level product analyst with no flashy degree and no executive confidence, had learned to keep his head down. Yet desperation has a way of sharpening clarity. As the company's losses mounted, Ethan saw patterns others ignored. Customer trust was eroding, not because the technology failed, but because the company no longer felt human. Support systems were cold, interfaces overwhelming, and the brand had become distant from real people. Late at night, after his daughter fell asleep beside her favorite stuffed bear, Ethan sketched a concept born not from spreadsheets but from life itself. A simplified, emotionally intuitive platform designed around accessibility, empathy, and real-world users, the same kind of design he wished existed in the systems he used as a grieving parent. Submitting the proposal felt like jumping without knowing if there was ground below. When he was finally invited to present it to the executive board, hope and terror braided tightly in his chest. He wore his only suit, slightly outdated, carefully pressed after midnight. He rehearsed silently while riding the elevator up, reminding himself that even being heard mattered. The reaction was immediate and dismissive. Laughter rippled through the room, led by the CEO, a man known for bold acquisitions and sharper opinions. The idea was labeled too soft, too emotional, not scalable enough for a company fighting to survive. Someone joked that this wasn't a charity organization. The meeting moved on quickly, and Ethan stood there for a moment too long, invisible again, before quietly leaving the room. What no one saw was the quiet collapse that followed. That night, Ethan sat on the floor of his small apartment, his daughter asleep in the next room, staring at the walls as doubt filled every corner. He wondered if believing in empathy had made him naive. He questioned whether his role as a single father had made him weak in a world that prized aggression. Still, something inside him refused to let go completely. He had seen what real people needed, and he knew the idea had value, even if the company didn't. Weeks passed, and the company's situation worsened. A major client pulled out. Stock prices dipped further. Internal panic began replacing boardroom confidence. The CEO, once unshakable, now faced pressure from investors demanding immediate solutions. In the rush to cut losses, the company rolled out another complex update, and it backfired spectacularly. User complaints flooded in. Support lines crashed. Social media turned unforgiving. That was when someone from customer analytics noticed something strange. In a forgotten test environment, a small group of beta users, people Ethan had quietly onboarded using his rejected framework, were showing unusually high engagement and satisfaction. Their retention numbers were stronger than anything else the company had seen in months. The system was simpler, warmer, and somehow more effective. The data made its way up the chain, and reluctantly, the executives called Ethan back into the room. This time, there was no laughter. Only tension and urgency filled the space. He presented again, hands steadier now, not because he felt confident, but because he felt responsible. He explained how the design focused on emotional flow, how users felt seen rather than managed, how trust created loyalty that no marketing budget could buy. What followed wasn't applause, but silence, the kind that signals something has shifted. Within weeks, the company pivoted. Resources were redirected, teams reorganized, and Ethan's idea became the backbone of a complete transformation. The rollout was cautious but intentional. Customers responded immediately. Reviews softened. Engagement climbed. Slowly, then all at once, the company began to recover. Investors stayed. Jobs were saved. The CEO never publicly apologized, but something changed in the way he looked at Ethan. Respect replaced dismissal. One afternoon, as the office buzzed with renewed energy, Ethan received an offer for a leadership role he never thought he'd earn. He accepted, not for status, but for stability, for the chance to finally breathe without fear of losing everything. At home, life changed too. Bills no longer stacked up on the table. Weekends became about park visits instead of overtime. His daughter laughed more, lighter now, sensing the shift even if she didn't understand it. One evening, as they worked on a school project together, Ethan realized something profound. The idea that saved the company had been shaped entirely by love, loss, and responsibility. The very things once seen as weaknesses had become his greatest strength. Just before the ending, we want to hear from you. Comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, or share a moment when someone underestimated you. Near the end of this journey, as the company stabilized and success stories circulated through industry headlines, Ethan remained grounded. He understood that not every idea gets a second chance, and not every voice is heard the first time it speaks. But he also knew that authenticity has a quiet power. The world doesn't always reward kindness immediately, but when it does, the impact can be extraordinary. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you not to give up on your ideas, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support means more than you know, and it helps keep stories like this alive. In the end, the laughter that once echoed through the boardroom was replaced by something far more meaningful, a lesson written not in profits alone, but in humanity. And somewhere between spreadsheets and bedtime stories, a single father proved that sometimes the idea everyone laughs at is the very one that saves everything.